Hey everybody, so during today's Winter Classic, it was announced who's going to be hosting next year's Winter Classic on January 1st, 2021. And it was announced that it will be the Minnesota Wild. The game will be played at Target Field, which is the baseball stadium for the Minnesota Twins. And the first thing that came into mind for me was, who are they going to be playing? Because that was not announced today, only that Minnesota would be the team hosting. And obviously their opponent is very, very important. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about who I think is a possibility that they could be playing and who I think they should be playing in next year's Winter Classic. Before we get into the video, I just quickly want to remind everyone to please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Greatly helps out the channel and would be very, very much appreciated as always. So we know it's in Minnesota, but we don't know who they're playing. And after watching this year's Winter Classic, which I think was one of the best Winter Classics we've had in recent memory, without a doubt, between Dallas and Nashville, the game was phenomenal. The atmosphere was phenomenal. We found, it proved that you could have a Winter Classic in a non-traditional hockey market, in a southern market. Obviously, Minnesota going back into a traditional hockey market without a doubt. It's not called the state of hockey for no reason. Obviously, Minnesota is expected to be a huge supporter of this event, and I mean, I'm sure it will be a sellout event, and there'll be massive numbers and all of that. But after watching this year's, it should be a divisional game. And I really think every Winter Classic from now on should be a divisional game between two teams that have at least a little bit of a divisional rivalry between them, play each other often. There'll be an important 2 points on the line in the game, because obviously when you're division games are probably the most important games of the regular season. Yeah, I just 100% think that it should be a divisional game. I don't want to see them in any cross-conference matchup. I won't even bother watching that. If they come out and Minnesota's opponent for this game is like the New York Rangers or the Pittsburgh Penguins or some crap like that, some team they see twice a year, I won't even watch it. It will be a waste of time. It should be a divisional game between, teams that have a rivalry, much like Nashville and Dallas was today. What an incredible game. It felt like a playoff game. Today's Winter Classic felt like a playoff game, and the NHL has to know that those are the best matchups. Those are going to be the best games, and those are what most people want to see. So, looking at the possible opponents, keeping it within the division, obviously it's not going to be Nashville or Dallas, because they played this year, so they're not going to be in it. I swear to God, if it's Chicago, I am going to blow my top. If it's the freaking Blackhawks again, and Chicago, even though they're absolute trash and a last place team, gets another outdoor game, I will be going on an epic rant on this channel about that, and also will not be watching the game. It better not be Chicago. I don't think it's going to be Chicago. Chicago was just in it against Boston, which, what a stupid matchup that was. But anyway, that's history now and beyond the point. It should be a divisional game. It's not going to be Nashville or Dallas, because they were just in it. Chicago's been in it recently. It better not be them again. So who does that leave? Well, you have the option of Winnipeg. But generally, the NHL, while Canadian teams have certainly been in Winter Classics, we've seen Toronto in one, we've seen Montreal we've seen Canadian teams in the Winter Classic. I don't think it's likely to be Winnipeg. My top choice, who I would love to see in the Winter Classic, is the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado is a young, up-and-coming team with a ton of young stars on it. A team that the NHL should be marketing, should be showing on the national stage as much as they can. They're incredibly fast. They play an extremely exciting brand of hockey. They score a lot of goals. Nathan MacKinnon is one of the absolute best players in the league, and his line mates, Gabe Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen, sure as hell aren't too bad either. That's just an explosive, dynamic, fun team to watch. Cale Makar on the back end, just an up-and-coming superstar, I believe. Samuel Girard, a really nice offensive defenseman for the Avalanche. Colorado would be my number one choice for Minnesota to play in the Winter Classic next year. However, Colorado is playing in a Stadium Series game this year, which means it's probably unlikely that they're going to get an outdoor game 2 years in a row. Now, it is possible that they go from a Stadium Series game to a Winter Classic. It's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility, especially since they are such an up-and-coming hot team that's getting a lot of notice and hype around the league. And especially among hockey fans, Colorado, I think, is one of those teams that like everyone is paying attention to. And obviously, there's a lot that you can market with there, and they're an extremely fun team to watch. So I don't think it's likely just because they already are getting an outdoor game this year, but I would love to see Minnesota and Colorado be the 2021 Winter Classic. However, that's my top personal choice. Who I think it most likely, out of all those divisional teams, who it's most likely to be, and who would make a lot of sense, is, quite frankly, the St. Louis Blues. And I would love that matchup as well. Don't get me wrong. I will, if it's Minnesota-St. Louis, I am watching that game. Now, St. Louis won the Stanley Cup last year, one of the best teams in the league again this year, which means next year they're probably going to be good again. I mean, I don't think anyone is going anywhere. That team's not just going to blow up and go from first to last like that over the course of a season. Well, they're one of the best teams in the league. Now, Minnesota is not, but, you have a top-tier team, a team that's gotten a lot of national coverage over the past year or so, particularly last year with their Cup run. And now this year they've gotten, obviously, coming off a Stanley Cup winning season, they've gotten a lot of national coverage as well. So it makes a lot of sense. They're one of the best teams in the league. They're a team that's getting a ton of attention, and they're a divisional opponent for the Minnesota Wild. So I think personally, given all the different pieces of the situation, I think the most likely divisional opponent that Minnesota would get and the most likely Winter Classic for next year is going to be Minnesota versus the St. Louis Blues. Colorado would be my top choice just because of how fun and dynamic and exciting that team is, but Minnesota is not, St. Louis is not a bad number two, and I think that's most likely what it's going to be. So again, that hasn't been announced yet. We don't know who it is, but I would say the St. Louis Blues are a strong choice for Minnesota's opponent in next year's Winter Classic, and I certainly have no problem with that. Again, I think it should always be a divisional game. It should be between two teams that have a bit of a rivalry between them, at least playing in the same division, and St. Louis certainly checks those boxes. They certainly check the national scale box of being a team that a lot of people have been watching and a lot of people pay attention to. And they're also a very, very good team. They are one of the best teams in the NHL in their current configuration, coming off a Stanley Cup win this year or last year, possibly going on another cup run this year. We don't know. St. Louis really does check all the boxes. So I think that's most likely who it's going to be and who it should be. Colorado's up there as well, but it certainly should be a divisional game. And I better not be the freaking Blackhawks again. It better not be Chicago. But anyway, with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.